Today we are going to be doing a full breakdown of all of the pedals that John Mayer uses for slow dancing in a burning room in its live incarnation. We're going to start off with the intro of the song and end with what is one of my favorite outro solos that John has ever done for slow dancing. But before we get into breaking down some incredible footage and watching John step on pedals and going through a deep dive explanation on everything, let's first take a look at the pedal board that he used for this show. Okay, so on your screen right now are going to be shots of John's pedal board that I'm also looking at here, and we need to just highlight a couple things, and you guys can take settings from the shot as well if you choose. Now, the most important thing to keep in mind is that this image, which is the best shot of John's pedal board we have from this era, being the 2019 World Tour, is that this is from the very last show of the North American Tour, and there was one primary change to his board that was really never repeated again for all three legs of this tour, and it's that the Klon Centaur was actually removed in favor of the solo Dallas Storm. Now, the Storm was a pedal that John was experimenting with during the 2019 World Tour. Some shows it would be on the pedal board, some shows it would be off. And on this one, which ironically, the show we get the very best shot of his pedal board, it actually kicked the Klon off and John was just running the solo Dallas Storm. However, for the European leg, which the footage we're going to be taking a look at is from the Amsterdam show, you actually see that the solo Dallas Storm sits in between the exotic XW1 wah pedal and the Klon Centaur. So both pedals are on John's pedal board and they are both used in this footage that we're taking a look at here, and I'll explain kind of why that is when we get to that point in the footage. The second thing to keep in mind here is that you see the Mesa Boogie Flux 5 on the very first row again after the TS10. Now this pedal, the Mesa Boogie Flux 5, currently sits in where John would have that third higher gain overdrive that he would stack for those really big outro solos. For the European leg, John actually was using a Shin's Music Dumbo Lloyd B in place of the Mesa Boogie Flux 5. So just in terms of signal chain and this really great shot here, you can kind of make it out in the shot from his board from the exact same show we are looking at. However, I just wanted to obviously highlight a better shot of his board for you all to understand. The next couple pedals that are important for you to know in terms of this footage, I guess, is going to be the Strymon Flint, which you can clearly see on the second row. Then in between the Strymon Flint and the Leslie Nielsen effect pedal, which we believe activated a Leslie off stage that was mic'd up, is what actually is the Providence Delay 80s. It's just blacked out with some labels on it for the settings, but you can clearly see that that is the exact same layout as a Providence Delay 80s, and the LED is going to be bright blue, just like a Delay 80s as well. It's just blacked out, but that's what it is. Then, of course, we also have in the very back row the Providence Chrono Delay, which is pretty much John's favorite digital delay with tap tempo of choice for the past few years now. And that rounds off the entire pedal board and what pedals are going to be important more or less for the demonstration of this video. So now that you all have an understanding of what his board looked like and what kind of pedals we will be discussing, let's take a look at this truly amazing footage and break down it all in its entirety. Okay, so this footage is from the 9th of October 2019 at the Ziggo Dome in Amsterdam, again, the third and final leg of the 2019 World Tour. And one little thing is that it starts a little bit after the song has begun, but that's okay because at the time of the actual footage starting, John is just playing guitar into amplifier for the opening lick of Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. So let's get into this just killer footage. Alright, so right there for the opening harmony, what you see John step on is the solo Dallas Storm. I know initially it's a little bit blurry for when he activates the pedal, but you can clearly see him turn it off in the footage once the camera kind of stabilizes. Now this is the first part here where it's very interesting seeing both the solo Dallas Storm and the Klon Centaur on the pedalboard at the same time, because in a lot of cases they kind of cover the exact same purpose essentially. Now in this footage and during the 2019 World Tour, John would sometimes use the solo Dallas Storm for the opening harmony of Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, but more often than not consistently what you will see, especially during the Sob Rock Tour, is him using the Klon Centaur for this part. This example specifically just shows him using the Solo Dallas Storm, but you can really give any kind of lower gain light overdrive for that sort of sound, borderlining on a clean boost. But this example is just the Solo Dallas Storm.
This love that we've been working on, can't seem to hold you like I want to.
After the opening harmony section is played, John actually stops playing guitar and just sings. But you see him turn on the Providence Delay 80s right before the chorus begins. And you can tell because that LED is super bright.
My dear, we're slow dancing in the
So right there again, after the first chorus, we have the second harmony section, and the Solo Dallas Storm is what John used again. Now for the second verse, John actually plays the guitar, and then you do have that Providence Delay 80s actually taking effect during the verse as well. Okay, so it's at this point here we are going to fast forward a little bit till the end of the second chorus. We still have the Providence Delay 80s on, which is on for the rest of the song actually. Now, normally what you'd see here at this point, or here rather, is John's guitar get louder, so you might actually believe that he's stepping on some sort of drive pedal like the Klon, for example. But in this one here, he's actually turning up his volume knob, and then he'll step on both sides of the Strymon Flint, which is one thing when it comes to slow dancing in a burning room that we actually see John starting to do quite a bit, even into the sob rock era as well, especially the harmonic trem side of the Strymon Flint. That's something he would use for the first bit of the solo for slow dancing in a burning room before it builds up to the studio version and closes out the first solo. So let's take a look at that here.
slow dancing in the
And right there, you would have seen John actually step on the Klon centaur. Now the solo's starting to build, and he's using the Klon to give him even more volume and a little bit more gain as well, and overall just boost his guitar tone. Fast forwarding a little bit again here, we see John turn off both sides of the Strymon Flint in preparation for the big studio version of the solo to close out the very first solo. Okay, so again there, I just fast forwarded a bit. The solos during the 2019 World Tour were just so long, and it was a really awesome thing about the tour. However, for the sake of this video, if I went through the entire solo and we just watched it together, we'd be here way longer than we needed to be. So one thing to keep in mind for the very first solo, especially as John's improvising before that final stage of the studio version, he is manipulating the volume of his guitar a lot with the volume knob, as well as using his hand to pick rather than a pick for those dynamics. So that's something you're seeing as well. You'll hear the volume kind of increase and decrease just as he plays with the volume knob and his attack with his hand. Now, of course, as a studio version of the solo begins, we see John step on the Ibanez TS10. So he is stacking the Klon centaur into TS10 in this version. Sometimes he would actually do the opposite depending on the layout of the pedal board, like the Sob Rock tour, for example, was actually TS10 into Klon centaur. But that's what you would expect, him gain stacking those two pedals, a Klon style pedal and a tube screamer, together for the main solo tone. Of course, the Providence Delay 80s is still on. Now we will begin at the Go Cry About It, Why Don't You section, where we see a couple more changes. Alright, so right there we saw John actually tap in a tempo on the Providence chrono delay and then turn it on. So at this point he's stacking both the Providence delay 80s as well as the Providence chrono delay together. And again, this is another theme that is quite common for a lot of songs actually from the 2019 World Tour performances as well as Sob Rock. Something as well I'm willing to bet we will see continue on into the next era as well of John's when he performs some of these songs. And I mentioned as well the Providence chrono delay has really been John's favorite digital delay with tap tempo for a long time now for a very good reason. Very accurate tap tempo feature with that digital screen on it as well. So John, just for different songs, he would use that to tap in a different tempo for the performances. So essentially, if you want to kind of copy both delay settings that he's using in here, you can use in the pedalboard shot, the main settings, and then just follow the tempo of the song to tap in, and then follow the Providence delay 80 settings, stacking them two together. Although it's very hard to hear in live footage, especially just being in these stadiums and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to hear the delays, but that's what's on at this point. And again, a theme that John would do quite often. Okay, so it's at this point here, I fast forwarded just a little bit again, we are going to see John launch into a just wild outro solo, and he's going to step on 3 pedals. Now he's going to turn on the Klon Centaur, the Ibanez TS10, as well as the Shins Music Dumbleloid B for a 3 overdrive setup to gain stack those 3 together and have a really high gain outro solo. And that's one theme that really occurred during the 2019 World Tour more so than the Sob Rock era, is we'd see John's guitar tones overall were a lot higher gain when it came to these bigger solos, and it's something I really liked actually. So depending on the era, you might see John stack in the Klon Centaur, the TS10, and then a Keeley Katana for a clean boost into those 2 drive pedals to kind of increase the overall volume and just boost of the solo. However, 2019 World Tour is more often than not 3 overdrive pedals instead. So those are kind of 2 common themes you'd see for these outro solos, but more often than not, it wasn't just a Klon and TS10. So I'm going to play for you guys a bit of this outro solo where you can see John stepping on those 3 drive pedals. Again, I'm not going to play the entire thing, but the whole clip of this will be linked in the description down below if you want to check out this performance in its entirety. But let's go ahead and watch that outro solo. So hopefully this video running down all of the pedals John uses for slow dancing in a burning room has helped you guys kind of understand what he uses, and maybe if you're trying to cover the song or perform it with your own band or whatever, you have some ideas of what pedals you can use to help get closer to what John is doing. And hopefully as well the themes that are kind of consistent throughout the different eras are clear as well. Again, of course, I've said it a couple times, the Soledad Storm is not something that has been used by John outside of this era, so a lot of its uses will actually just be the Klon Centaur taking on both parts, like the harmony and then the boost for the solo, kind of the first kind of stage after just increasing the volume knob on his guitar. The Klon Centaur would kind of take on all of that normally, but this footage was just too good for me not to use to break it down. If you guys did enjoy this video, please let me know in the comments down below, and if there are any others you want to see. I'm going to start doing a bit of a deeper dive into some older footage to see if I can find more footage like this to break down in the same format for y'all, because I think it's very helpful. I also do have a couple more videos going over just when John uses specific pedals as well, and eventually I'd like to just have a whole database on the channel where you guys can take a look at songs specifically or pedals specifically and have different ideas and be able to kind of get the better understanding for whichever way you want to tackle something like this. So sometimes the information will cross over, but it's more easily digestible, I think, that way if I focus on pedals and then songs themselves as well. So again, let me know your guys' thoughts on all of this in the comments down below, your thoughts on the tone from that outro solo. It's just amazing with that higher gain dumble kind of lead sound from the Dumbleloid as well, of course going into dumbles, but you know, just different lead sounds from John in the 2019 World Tour, and I hope he does revisit them again, because outside of maybe Born and Raised or Continuum, I think 2019 World Tour tones were my personal favorite. So pretty great sounding stuff from John. So you guys, until the next one, thank you very much for watching this video, especially if you made it to the very end. And if you're a John Mayer fan and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet and you've watched it till this point, well, I think maybe you should subscribe because I got some pretty awesome Mayer content on the channel. So thanks so much for watching. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.